辛そうな話でしたので聞こえないふりをしましたが。
優等生だな。紹介してくれ。話を聞きたい。
辛そうな話でしたので聞こえないふりをした優等生の私に。
Even this outrageous arrogance is nothing compared to Kinzo. After muttering this several times mentally, Leon shrugged and nodded at Will.
あら、次期当主様じゃない。
But man, you know, this is like textbook, like classic scenario for a murder mystery. We have murder that we've learned of like really early. Will over here is a new character that has nothing to do with the family, and yet he's here to investigate and figure out the murder of Beatrice. And now we are in this giant room with every single possible suspect, and we're gonna interrogate like each of them. Like that is like the epitome of the classic murder mystery thing right over here going on. Similar fashion to, I don't know, Hercule Poirot or something like that.
そちらの方は？
ああ、エヴァおばさん。
So we're basically gonna be interrogating like every single person right around here.
こちらはウィルさん。個人のために献花に訪れてくれました。
んなことはどうでもいい。ベアトリーチェについて知って。
個人と後ろ宮家の関わりについてお話を聞きたいと言っています。
Man, you know, for someone like Will, who has been introduced as someone who really cared for the motive and the heart of a murder mystery, he is a little bit rude on the flip side in that aspect, which it's still fine. Like, maybe he really is that passionate to solve the mystery and figure out the heart of this, but at the same time, he's a bit impatient in terms of that. He's gonna be a little bit rude to people as well. Leon spoke with a bright smile while pinching Will's butt. Also, sorry if I'm if I'm doing like many pauses right over here for me to commentate like one after another. But yeah, you know, with someone like Will, who apparently has been using Van Dyne's rules like so much, which in my eyes as well, Van Dyne's rules, they are a bit again, product of its own time, but nonetheless, it is interesting that Will, someone who has been focusing on the heart and the motives and such, is using Van Dyne out of all things. It's definitely an interesting contrast there. Will silently protested, as though saying, even for a gag, that hurts. But Leon just played dumb and smiled at Eva like a model student.
後ろ宮家との関わりって言ってもね。
後ろ宮家とちゅうよりお父さんとの関わりっちゅうべきやろな。
正直に言えばいいのさ。親父の愛人ってな。
愛人なんて言うとまた夏日姉さんに怒られるわよ。恩人でしょ。
そうやな。
こんな具合ですが。
ローザ以外には興味ね。
ローザおばさんは確かベアトリーチェに会ったことがあると。
This whole time, Rosa had been hanging her head. Leon's words made her shoulders quiver.
今日になって急に言い出したのよ。ちょっと信じがたい話だわ。本当なのよ。ベアトリーチェは私が殺したの。
事件解決だな。
早計です。
Yeah, it's gotta be the shortest mystery ever. Oh. Well, I assume that Will is joking about this, because if he just jumps to the conclusion that Rosa did it, then That's a little bit of a contradictory thing in comparison to when we got introduced to Will before. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we have this kind of scenario here. Will right over here that we see here is completely different than the Will that we've seen at the beginning, protecting the maid. Maybe he went through a character development, and this will be like the beginning of his adventure, of his story. Whereas what we've seen at the beginning is like after some character development about the importance of the motive and the heart of the story. Whereas here, Will is being a bit of a jackass, and he jumped to the conclusion that, oh, it must be Rosa then. Job well done. Okay, let's go. Maybe it's gonna be like that. Maybe. Let's see. Rosa broke down crying and laid her head on the table. Kirie and Hideyoshi tried to console her.
六軒島はうっそうとした森に包まれてる。私たちが知っているのはそのうちのごくわずか。屋敷とバラ庭園、そして船着き場に向かうちょっとした林道だけ。
誰も知らない広大な森のどこかに親父が隠れ屋敷を作って愛人を住まわせてるんじゃないかって話は相当の昔からあったんだ。
ローザさんは多分その隠れ屋敷に偶然たどり着いてしまったっちゅうんやろな。
しかしどうしてローザおばさんはベアトリーチェを殺したなどと。
私が連れ出さなければ彼女は死なずに済んだわ。彼女は無垢なひよこのような人だったわ。私が連れ出したから素直についてきた。何も疑わずに私の後をぴったりついてきて、私があんな足場の悪いところを歩かせてしまったから。
お前は崖から足を踏み外すことを期待してそこを歩かせたのか。
そんなつもりはなかった。
Jesus.
ただ海が見たいと思って。歩きづらそうだったから下に降りれば少しは楽になるかなと思って。
それは殺したとは言わねえ。事故だ。
私が連れ出さなければ会わなかった事故よ。私のせいなの。それに私は血まみれの彼女を見捨てて逃げ帰ってしまった。
あんたのせいじゃねえ。ベアトリーチェは海を一度も見たことがなかった。それをあんたが初めて見せたんだ。つい浮かれて一歩踏み外しちまったんだろ
う。どうしてあなたはそれを。
ベアトリーチェはあんたに感謝こそする。恨んでるわけもねえ。
そうかしら。本当にそうなのかし
Yeah, I do believe that too.
柵の外の世界へ出たいと懇願したのは彼女だ。お前はその夢を束の間だけ叶えたんだ。俺がベアトリーチェならその束の間の時間をお前に感謝するだろうよ。なのにお前がいつまでも苦しんでると知ったら申し訳なく思うだろう。ベアトリーチェはお前に感謝してる。海が青いってことを教えてくれたあんたをな。
それは本当に。
俺が保証する。
Will made that statement openly and boldly. No one could tell how Rosa took those words. However, they had apparently been enough to remind her to take a handkerchief out of her pocket and wipe her eyes.
ありがとう。
その言葉はベアトリーチェが今もあんたにささやいてる。
ありがとう。
Rosa wiped her eyes with a handkerchief one more time and hung her head. He no longer looked like a fit of sobbing, but more as though she was speaking with the Beatrice of that day within her heart. One last time.
よくもそんな無責任な言葉を堂々とかけられるものです。
責任がなけりゃ女を慰めることもできねえのか。
多少は見直しました。
For how many years had this tormented Rosa? Now, for the first time, Rosa would probably be able to face that innocently smiling Beatrice, who had seen the ocean for the first time in her life. Okay, well, you know what? I guess you can, we can scratch what I said before in regards to Will, about the character development as such. Yeah, Will apparently does get it. She was the only one who could forgive Rosa. Now the two of them could finally speak together.
どなたか存じないけれど、ありがとう。彼女は私を許してくれるかしら。
I'm sure she does.
あんたは20年近くもそれを悩んだ。長すぎだ。彼女はもう勘弁しろと言ってだ。
そうですよ、ローザおばさん。あなたが悲しめば悲しむほど、きっとベアトリーチェも悲しむでしょう。
あなたまでありがとう。私には私が許されるかどうかわからないけれど、彼女が許してくれるかどうか胸の中で問いかけてみることにするわ。二人ともありがとう。恥ずかしいところを見せてごめんなさい。
No sorries, Rosa. It is perfectly fine.
綺麗事を言った舌の根も乾かねえうちで恐縮だが、聞かせてほしい。当時のことを。
ウィルさん。
ありがとう。大丈夫よ。話すわ。誰にも話さずにずっと隠してきたことが私の一番の罪なのかもしれないから。
お前がベアトリーチェに出会ったのは正確にはいつ頃なのか。
Upon hearing this question, Rosa closed her eyes lightly, reaching back to a past she didn't want to remember. Going back to the past once again! Flashback time!
20年ほど昔の話よ。いえ、19年前か18年前かもしれない。
19.
ごめんなさい。長いこと無理に忘れようとしてきたものだから、そこは少し忘れかけてるわ。
1967年のことのはずだ。
No, I had guaranteed that with the red shoe from the third game.
そうね。
Also, I love that Will doesn't even hide this stuff. Like, he doesn't even hide that he knows all this stuff, that he would be seen as really, really weird at this point by the family. Like, how the fuck does he know all this stuff? It's like, only Rosa actually knows about this stuff. Now that I'm thinking about it. Will knows stuff that only Rosa would know, since she tried to hide it for such a long time.
多分1967年頃だわ。あの時の出来事は写真のように鮮明に覚えてる。忘れられないの。
辛かったら無理に話す必要はありませんので。
写真のように鮮明に頼む。痛えぞリオン。
何のことやら。
家庭教師が私の内緒話を母に告げ口していたのにショックを受けて、あの日私は自暴自棄になって森の奥へ奥へどこまでもかけていったの。
And this tale had also been told in a previous fragment. Back when Rosa was just a kid, she had gone deep into the forest, found a hidden mansion, and met with a mysterious woman who called herself Beatrice.
ほんの少し分け入ることすら難しいあの深い森を。
自分でも驚くわ。あんなうっそうとした森をよくもあんなに深くまで。たくさんの梢や鋭い葉っぱで苛まれたわ。でもあの日の私は気にしなかった。森の奥へ消えることで永遠に消えてしまいたかったし、もし本当に森の奥に魔女の館があったなら、自分を幸せの国へ連れて行ってくれるか、カエルにでも変えて森の住人に変えてくれると思っていたから。
そしてあんたは隠し屋敷クアドリアンにたどり着き、そこでベアトリーチェと名乗る女と出会う。
ええ、あったわ。
そのベアトリーチェは肖像画のベアトリーチェと同一人物だったか？
ええ、同一人物だったわ。美しい青い瞳、黄金の髪、黒いドレス、まさにあの肖像画通りの人物だった。私はあの肖像画をお父様が掲げた時、私が忘れようとあがいた20年の月日はお父様にとっても同じ、あるいはそれ以上の日々であったと気づき、さらなる罪に怯えたわ。
Okay. You guys may remember that I talked about this in the last investigation part, when I talked about Beatrice's looks and such, and that Kuodori and Beatrice may have actually looked a bit different. Here, Rosa is saying that, well, that Kuodori and Beatrice definitely look like the one in the portrait, which would contradict what I said. The thing is, I did take that into account before, but with what I was thinking before, it was open to interpretation whether the details of Rosa's confessions were actually true. That, and I don't know if she actually described Beatrice. It was, you know, like take it with a grain of salt type of thing, where the reader doesn't take everything at 100% legit and such. Here, well, I could say the same thing, but I guess it goes back to that good old question of what would be objective in this case. The detective's viewpoint would be objective, and I guess in this case, Will is the new detective? Because if I'm to go with that theory that I had before about Beatrice's looks, either Rosa is hiding and lying about Kuodorian's actual looks, or she's telling the truth, and, well, if Will is the detective over here and this whole thing is a little bit more objectively true, then, well, we can throw that that whole discussion with Beatrice's looks out the window. So I guess there's that to take into account. It's, again, that whole thing with Beatrice's looks, while it is interesting, it's also something that would need to be ironed out in the future if I have to continue with that kind of interpretation of mine, but either way.
それ、本当にローザさんの出会ったベアトリーチェのことなのかしら。
Immediately, Kiria spoke the question that Will had been thinking of. Good question indeed. It would be too rash to assume that a Beatrice Kinzo met was the same person as the one Rosa met. Mm. Oh, you mean that? I would say that they were the same, but the time and generation were different for each.
ベアトリーチェってのは戦後すぐの頃親父に黄金を貸し付けた勇敢マダムのはずだぜ。
お父さんはベアトリーチェの黄金を元手に後ろ宮家を復興して大金持ちになり、そして六軒島を買い取り移住するんや。ローザさんが出会ったのはそれから10年以上も先の話になるで。
I think he was, if I remember correctly, I think that the year when the mansion was constructed was 1953, maybe? I think it was like that. It was when Kenzo had all his gold and rebuilt the family.
10トンの黄金を自在にできるご婦人が小娘程度のわけはない。ましてやローザがあった頃にはそれからさらに10年以上が経過してる。ローザ、あんたの会ったベアトリーチェはいくつくらいに見えたのよ。
当時の私よりは年上に見えたけれど、それでも多分成人したかどうかという年に見えたわ。
Around 20, yeah. Like, in my eyes, she definitely has the looks of a, like, around 20, like, early 20 woman and such. But, you know, I guess if we are to take into account the looks and such, like, of a young person, like, say she were 20, would you say that, that like 10 years earlier, like before 1967, 1953 or even earlier, there will be 14 years, like a minimum 10 years before, or 14 or such, that would make her either 10 or 6. You're telling me that a 6-year-old gave Kenzo the gold? I don't know. I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, when I think of Kuodori and Beatrice, I would think of a Beatrice that is much older. I mean, I can look at Beatrice and I can definitely see her as 30 years old as well. Hell, maybe you can push it to like 32 maybe? She is definitely beautiful. She can reach that kind of age and still look like that in my eyes. In which case, if I were to subtract like 10 years maybe, or 14, that would still make her like a teenager of sorts. That would be good enough for when, I don't know, young Kinzo would actually meet the teenager Beatrice in 1953 or something, when Beatrice, Kuodori and Beatrice at that point gave him the gold. But if Kuodori and Beatrice was actually like 20 in 1967, yeah, that's very questionable.
そう、まさに肖像画のベアトリーチェくらいの年齢よ。
中年、あるいは壮年に見えたか？
大人か子供かって言われたら、明らかに子供に近い年齢だったわ。中年なんてとんでもない。
だからそれじゃおかしいのよ。あんたの会ったベアトリーチェとお父様に黄金を与えたベアトリーチェ、年齢が合わないのよ。
つまり別人ということだ。
よく似た同じ名前の別人。
娘かもしれんな。親子ならよく似とったに違いない。
So, Okay, like if I'm to think about it, does this mean that we're adding like another generation here, maybe? Like, okay, let's think about it this way. There was another Beatrice in 1953. Like another Beatrice, first Beatrice 1953 or around that age, then gave birth to another Beatrice, and that Beatrice is Ecuadorian Beatrice, which then gave birth to another Beatrice, which in that case would be Shannon.
愛人の娘ありえるわ。黄金を授けたベアトリーチェとの間にお父さんは隠し子を設けたとか。
それがローザの出会ったベアトリーチェ2世ってわけか。
Beatrice number 2.
年齢的辻褄は合う
な。なるほど。つまりベアトリーチェと呼ばれる人物は2人いるわけですね。
Kenzo secretly raised his mistress's child in a hidden mansion. And, you know, okay. You remember that one time when Ecuadorian Beatrice was talking to Kenzo, and Ecuadorian Beatrice was looking at Kenzo as if he was her father, not particularly a lover or his mistress, which, you know, when you take that into account, yeah, it could very well be that Ecuadorian Beatrice was actually the daughter of the first Beatrice that was with Kenzo in a loving relationship. So, yeah. That would make logical sense. Everyone nodded, agreeing. However, Will's expression was slightly unsatisfied, and he scratched at his head.
どうやらこの葬儀は隠したがゆえに弔うことができなかった2人のベアトリーチェのためのようですね。
I mean, you know, there is one other possibility, but I seriously doubt that. Like, one other possibility would be that Ecuadorian Beatrice is actually Shannon, and she actually survived up until this point, but look at Shannon, she is still a teenager. If Ecuadorian Beatrice still survived after 1967, she would definitely look a lot older at this point, in which case we wouldn't really have Shannon or Kanon, like, in the first place, in my eyes.
ローザ、思い出したくねえだろうが、事故の時の話を頼む。ベアトリーチェが転落した時、まだ息はあったのか？
いいえ、目を大きく見開いていた。頭から真っ逆さまに落ちて、岩浜の岩の鋭い角に頭をぶつけて、それもあの高さから。頭部は陥没して裂けてたわ。美しい黄金の髪がみるみるうちに赤黒く溢れる血に染められて。
一目見て死んだと確信できる外傷だったのか？
ええ、割れた頭の中身を見たわ。それも握り拳次第に陥没して。あれを見て生きててほしいなんて、いくらなんでも虫が良すぎるわ。
ウィル、それ以上聞く必要はありますか？
事故時はもういい。それからあんたはどうした？
一目散に駆け出したわ。誰かを呼びに行くためなんて綺麗事でさえない。その場から一刻も早く逃げ出したかったの。錯乱状態になりながら、涙と荒い息でめちゃくちゃになりながら、でたらめにどこまでも。そしたらいつの間にか見知ったライオンの彫像に出くわしたわ。
ああ、礼拝堂の前の？
いいえ、裏のよ。 とにかく私は屋敷に帰り着いた。誰にも話せない。話したくない。私は夜まで黙っていたわ。ひどい話よ。急いで誰かに話し、救急箱を持って戻っていたら彼女を助けられたかもしれないのに。
頭蓋骨陥没を救急箱の何で救えたってんだ。
There's something weird with that. With what she said there. Well, like with this exchange here, and I cannot put my finger. About the lion statue. Not the one in the front, but rather the one in the back. Why is that detail important to note in this? And I'm not talking about story reasons, but rather why Ryukishi decided to describe this. Like Ryukishi could have just easily gone with the lion statue in the front, but no. I think it's because maybe Ryukishi is trying to make us pay attention to something in the back of the chapel. Maybe there is something there. Because otherwise, she could have just talked about the lion statue that we've seen in the front.
お前が殺したわけじゃない。もう気にするな。
それでローザおばさんはどうしたんですか？
ベッドで何度も寝返りを打ったわ。眠れなかった。深夜にこっそり源氏さんに電話して打ち明けたわ。
源氏は何と言った？
自分に全て任せ、誰にもこのことは言わないようにと。後日きっとお父様に呼び出されてひどく叱られるだろうと数日の間怯えたわ。でもそれはなかった。源氏さんはいつものようにしずしずと仕事をする日々。お父様は相変わらずの書斎ごもりで何もわからない。
少なくとも私たちの耳には入らなかったわ。
源氏さんがうまく処理してくれたんだろうな。
表沙汰にできない子だったでしょうからね。
隠し子っちゅうたって血を分けた子供や。その葬式もまともにあげられんかったんなら、そらお父さんも心苦しかったやろな。
それがこの葬儀というわけですね。
But why now? That would definitely be the $1,000,000 question. The $250,000 question. Like, why now? Of all times.
それから
私が知っている話はこれで全てよ。
俺が知っている話もそれで全てだ。
これ以上私は何も隠していない。全て話した。誓うわ。
Well, scratched his head, letting his gaze wander. He had taken with a lot of determination to make this confession, and it was nothing particularly special for Will. He had been a little more than a review of information he already knew.
ありがとう、ローザおばさん。十分ですか、ウィル。これで話は。
十分だ。おさらいになった。
To Will, Rosa's memories gave only information that was already known. This was the first time he had heard all that about her running back to the mansion after Beatrice fell to her death. But none of it was particularly surprising. Apparently, Rosa really didn't know any more than this. If he wanted to learn something beyond the fragments given to him by Ben Castell, he would need to find new testimony.
リオン、金蔵に俺が話を聞きたがってると伝えろ。
Kenzo himself, eh?
やはり本人に聞かなきゃ話は進まね
え。Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we've seen Kinzo. So, I wouldn't say that what we're witnessing over here is the most objective view as such, so...
あなたはどちらへ？
頭を冷やして整理する。ついてくんな。
それは失礼。どうぞごゆっくり。
After giving an elegant bow, Leon made a face, tongue sticking out. Unless Will had eyes on the back of his head, he couldn't have seen this last bit. Oh, but we know. We surely know. Will returned to the chapel by himself. The cold air and the monotonous sound of the rain were comforting.
どう？ゲームは。
He had come here for a little peace and quiet. No sooner had he let out a sigh of relief than that voice rang out.
それは俺が聞くことだ。
As though she had been sitting there all along. Becca still appeared on top of the altar once more. Apparently, she found this particular altar extremely comfortable.
バトラは無能で、私を何度もイラつかせたわ。
Yeah, you just sit on top of Beatrice. As if you are the one on top, both literally and figuratively.
それに比べ、あなたは有能だから、見ていて安心できるわ。
後ろ宮バトラの時と違い、誰の妨害もねえ。気楽なもんさ。
もうそういうゲームは終わったの。物語は二度楽しめるわ。一度目はめでて、二度目は腹を引き裂いてね。
ち、俺を肉屋だと思ってやがる。
どう？ベアトリーチェ殺しの犯人は分かりそう？
ローザの告白は過去のかけらですでに知ってる。真新しい情報はない。進展はゼロだ。後ろ宮金蔵が本当のことを喋らねえ限り、これ以上の展開はねえ。まさか俺が金蔵を口説き落として真相を告白させるってのもゲームに含まれてるとは言い出さねえだろうな。
そんなの退屈で死んでしまうわ。真実を語らぬ金蔵はそれ自体が城に守られたキングだけれど、あなたのゲームの障壁になってしまっては面白くない。
拷問はやらねえ。俺の流儀だ。
分かってる。ゲームマスターとしてあんたに力を与えるわ。金蔵から真実を得られるようにね。
Still wearing shoes, Benka still stepped into the casket, picked up one of the flowers that had been set as offerings, and blew hard, as though scattering fluff from a dandelion. When she did, a single petal broke off and drifted down towards Will. No longer gold, but with the shine of a transparent crystal.
探偵権限か。
Ooh.
なにその間抜けな能力。違うわ。それは観覧席への招待状よ。
Invitation to the auditorium.
感激者権限か。それを元老院の許可なく与えることは禁じられてるはず。
私のゲーム版で誰が禁止すると？
Though the crystal flower petal danced in the wind, he wouldn't fly away anywhere until Will accepted it. Will remembered how useless it was to argue with witches, and he snatched it up. When he did, the petal flashed brightly for an instant, melted into Will's palm, and disappeared.
せいぜい私を楽しませなさい。ついでにあなたも楽しむといい。このベアトリーチェのゲーム版の腹渡がどうなってるか、あんたも興味があるでしょ。
ねえよ。
After Will's rude answer, Vega still vanished into thin air, leaving behind an obnoxious laugh. Okay. Well, after clicking his tongue, Will turned around, visibly annoyed. When he did, he felt as though his gaze crossed that of a shadowy figure standing by the door in front of him that led outside.
誰だ?
失礼しました。
Hey, what's up, Shannon?
声が聞こえたので、どちら様かと思いまして。
シャノンか。今度はお前が受付をしているのか。
はい、カノン君と交代で受付を担当させていただいております。
おう、カノンは
先ほどリオン様に休みを取るようご命令を賜りましたので、今は休んでおります。
お前もリオンに面識がないのか。
いえ、そんな。
後ろ宮リオンは銀の指輪を許された次期当主だ。10年を務めたお前が名前を言いよどむのはおかしい。
That's because... that is because Leon just popped into existence, like, all of a sudden. Like, this is your first time seeing Leon yourself as well, Shannon.
それは。
安心しな。リオンに面識がねえのは俺もだ。次期当主はクラウスのはず。子供もジェシカだけのはずだ。リオンなんてやつが後ろ宮家にいたかけらなんて一つもなかったはず。
Upon hearing that Will didn't recognize Leon either, Shannon looked back up at him in surprise. Apparently, she was a bit relieved to find that she wasn't going crazy by herself. However, her expression quickly grew uncertain once more.
ここはどこなんでしょう。後ろ宮家の礼拝堂と思います。
It is. It definitely is. But it is definitely coated with a certain witch's magic, that's for sure.
でも、どことなく雰囲気が違います。それに、リオン様という方がおられたなんて、私、全然知りませんでした。なのに、旦那様も奥様も、親方様もお嬢様も、親類の皆様も、当たり前のようにお話をされています。何が何だか、私、わからなくて。
リオンはベルンカステルが置いた駒だ。奴を置くためにさらに大きな猫箱に変えたとも言っていた。それだけでなく、どうもここはいくつかのかけらが継ぎはぎして作られたまともじゃない世界らしい。
It's as though this is a special stage set up specifically for this game. I'm sure she's nodding at my thoughts right now, laughing and chopping down popcorn.
この世界のお前は何年ここに勤めている
？10年です。
I see. So it really is a special stage. After all, right when I entered the chapel, I spotted Kenzo. If Shannon has worked here for 10 years, then this is 1986, the stage of Bato's game. In that case, Kenzo He really shouldn't exist. However, he definitely was here a few minutes ago. But I still promise that all the information needed for reasoning was gathered here. She must have crammed all manner of stuff in here to make that true. I see. So it really is a special stage.
お前はそれだけの長い間後ろ宮家に仕えてたならベアトリーチェのことをどれだけ知っている？
親方様が深く愛された方くらいにしか。
それだけか？
Is it?
あとその六軒島の夜の主と言われていて、その
And
そうだ。夜な夜な屋敷を徘徊するとささやかれる亡霊の名もまたベアトリーチェだ。
That brings the number of Beatrices to 3. The first is the Beatrice from more than 30 years ago, who is said to have given Kinzo the gold. The second is the Beatrice from 20 years ago, who met Rosa. The third is the Beatrice of the ghost stories, who is rumored to be the master of the night on Rokenjima.